Two guys and a mic. I'm Jim Ryan. My partner, Mark Rizzo, is not here today taking care of a family issue, but I have two very special guests with me, guys I've worked with for a long time. I watched when they first came on television many years ago. Alan Hunter and Mark Goodman, two of the original MTV-VJs. It is so good to see you guys again. It's been a while.
Nice to be seen, and great to see you, Jim Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a true family affair today. I love it.
I really miss working with you guys day to day, week to week. How's things going? You guys holding down the fort over there?
We're actually trying to sink it now since you're not there.
Yeah. I got to tell you, it's got so many holes in it since you've been gone. You were the one patching them all up, and we are 6 months in a leaky boat now. So,
well, I appreciate the kind words. So, Alan and Mark, as I said, are original VJs, and for those that don't know the story, let's kind of go back and discuss that. Alan, why don't you start and tell us how you got to MTV?
On Mark Goodman's back.
Oh yeah, man. That's how you stayed at MTV.
just grabbed on and hung on for dear life.
No, you were an actor. You were an actor by trade, right?
I was a waiter by trade, really, when it comes down to it. I made a few bucks here and there doing some acting jobs. So, yes, I was a young, stars in my eye, wanted to make it in the acting business, really wanted to be a Broadway star, was in New York for less than a year. Just gotten out of drama school, and I was waiting tables, going to auditions. I was in the movie Annie. I was in another couple of little movies.
Wait, you were in Annie?
I was, man. Come on. Is this something that's just now revealed to you?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either. I know you're in the Bowie video.
You go get the DVD for the big Broadway musical Annie on film, and you come to the part in Radio City Music Hall where there's 100 ushers welcoming Annie and Daddy Warbucks into the show, and I'm one of the ushers. And you still it on DVD if you have a still frame, and you can see me.
Well, damn! I guess I'm gonna have to go out and get a DVD again.
That was man, I tell you, I made probably $1,000 on that 3-day gig. It was amazing to be in the union at that point. So I'm struggling actor. I did a David Bowie video a couple of months later. I bump into Bob Pittman, who was, early on the wonderkin for MTV. I think he had his sidekick John Sykes. We met at a party in Central Park one afternoon. He was a friend. His father was a friend of my wife's father and family at the time. He asked me what I'm up to. I said, I'm bartending. Funny that you should mention. He says, I'm doing a video show. We're trying to put together a video channel 24/7 on cable. And we all knew what cable was at the time. It was public access and porno shows. And
New York, it was Ugly George.
Yeah, Ugly George.
Remember that guy?
Yeah, Ugly George. The Robin.
New York in like an aluminum
spacesuit
with girls into getting undressed in little vestibules of apartment buildings.
This is what was on cable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then the Robin Bird show. She was a porno actress who sat almost naked in a bikini doing interview stuff. So anyway, cable to me was that, and I said, funny, I was just in a David Bowie video. I had a little small part, so I know what videos are, but the only place you could see them was on Midnight Special and Wolfman Jack. So I had no idea what he was talking about. It was like, cable videos, but have a nice day, Bob Pittman. He walked away. 2 days later, I got a call from the executive producer, Sue Steinberg, who said, Bob bumped into you and thinks you should come and audition. And I said, and it's what again? Went down, auditioned, 3 consecutive auditions within about a week, each of them, terrible. And then they gave me the job. I was the last VJ, I think, to be hired, Martha Quinn. And I hired around the same time, but they'd already gotten Mark, Nina, and J.J. Jackson on board, and they were sweating bullets and needed a guy next door, blonde-haired Midwestern kid, and I fit the bill. And they said, "Screw it, we'll hire him for a while, fire him later when he doesn't work out, but we need somebody."
So what you're saying is being terrible paid off.
I don't know. I was authentic, I think, is what they called me. He seemed authentic and trainable.
It's the desperation of MTV at that moment, I think, is clear in that line.
Totally evident. They were going on air in 3 weeks. I was hired 3 weeks before it went live, August the 1st. And I got it. They went through thousands of people for a year. Radio people, not all of them fit the bill, so they asked a bunch of the celebrity rock stars like Kevin Cronin got asked to be a VJ, and he said, "Huh? I don't think so." So yeah, it was
So how much
desperation.
rehearsal time did you get before the grand opening of the launch?
Well, Mark knows it was a 50-ring circus leading up to the launch. I mean, everybody was running around trying to get the show together and paint the sets and, make sure the cameras were right. And we were doing, getting ourselves together. Certainly for me, it was like going to college. I had 3-ring binders with, facts from rock and roll bands and scripts that we were going over. It was a lot of rehearsal, mainly for the crew and the production. We were sort of secondary. Like, y'all get in front of the teleprompter and start practice reading it as they moved the plants around on the set.
Right.
So for me, it
Right.
was a weird, nervous time. Mark had been there for a little while. I got a sense that I was joining the party kind of late, before the start.
Well, Mark, you came from radio. You were a Philly kid. You worked at MMR. You worked at PLJ in New York. So you had a radio background. I know JJ had a radio background, and Martha had done some college radio. But Alan, you had never done radio prior to,
No,
or anything like that prior to the
never done
MTV.
radio. I'd done some hosting. I'd done some TV stuff, but, fairly
Right.
unlegitimate, but no radio. But I got the sense early on, and I know Mark and everybody else did too, that this wasn't radio.
Right.
From the get-go, it was a whole different beast. Knowing all of the music, having a, comfort with extemporaneous chat about music and concerts and songs and stuff, that didn't come familiar to me because I needed a script early on.
Right.
I was an actor. Give me some Shakespeare, I'll give it to you. So I had to find a way to free myself up over those first few months and they kept saying natural. And when someone says, just be natural, that's like someone hitting you with a stick and saying, calm down. What does that
Mark,
even...
did you have to audition?
Yeah, of course.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I got a call from
You were at PLJ at the time, right?
Sorry?
You were at PLJ at the time?
Yes, I was maybe 5 months into a 3-year contract.
Oh, I didn't know you hadn't been there longer than 5 months. Wow.
I moved to New York in July of 80.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I started at PLJ. And I quit PLJ in I want to say maybe April or May, I think, to start at MTV. Something like that.
You got
How did you
hired
get
in April,
approached?
May? Wow.
Something like that. I forget exactly, but it was like springtime, I remember.
Who approached you?
I got a call from a friend of mine in Philly radio. He was actually the music director at a competing radio station in Philadelphia, WYSP.
Yep.
And he called to let me know that a guy that we all knew, I had worked with him, he was at MMR previously, a guy that we all knew from Philadelphia television was working for this new company. He didn't know exactly what they were doing. It was called Warner Amex, and they're doing some video. I don't know, but here's the guy. And it was Alan. Richard Bensavengo was the guy, and he was he was the producer.
Yeah.
He sort of he had someone over him. The executive.
It was under Robert Morton, right?
It was Morty. Yeah, Robert Morton. And many of the David Letterman staff who were with us leading up to the August 1st launch. And then when September came along, it became clear that David Letterman was getting his late night show, and there was a mass exodus. All these people left us to go over to Letterman. In fact, it was his makeup woman that showed us how to put makeup on for the
That's right. That's right. That's so funny. It really was funny to them. It was like cable broadcast.
Yeah.
Cable broadcast.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. It's so different these days, right?
I wound up. So I called Richard. Great. Yeah, Mark, come on in. Come on. We'll come on over to the Sheraton on 7th Avenue. Just come on. And okay. So I go down to the Sheraton, and I go up to the 3rd floor, room 305, and I'm like, this is feeling a little creepy. Hi, I knock on the door. Hi, is anybody there? I'm sitting on one bed. He's sitting on another bed. That was my first audition.
An immediate sense of low rent.
Yeah.
Man, I thought I was going to be raped. Frankly, I didn't know what was happening. But so that was the first audition. The second one was it was me, on a stool in a freezing cold studio with like one spot in my face and one camera and a copy stand. They wanted me to do news.
Okay.
That was my second. The third one, and I wonder, Alan, if you had this one, but the third one was at a studio downtown in New York, and there was two areas, and the idea was that we had to. There was an easel that had all these cutouts of the Eagles, you know, and so the assignment was, okay, back announce an Eagles song and talk a little bit about the Eagles, and then walk over to this couch and sit down.
Say hello to the cardboard men.
And so it was like,
wow,
I can do that.
You know, I did my audition in the first studio, all three of them. You know, again, I
Oh,
was
that's
late.
right.
Teletronics was the studio at 33rd and 10th. It had already been, you know, buzzing for probably a month at that point, as they had built the sets and they were getting everything ready. So I auditioned on the actual set.
Oh, okay.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was the last.
I think Martha did too.
Yeah, I think Martha and I both
Yeah.
didn't have auditions in creepy hotel rooms.
Right.
Two guys and a mic. My normal partner, Mark Rizzo, is off doing a family emergency this week. So I am here with Alan Hunter and Mark Goodman, two original VJs. And we all work together at Sirius XM when I programmed 80s on 8. They are two of the talent that are on that channel, along with Nina Blackwood.
Yeah, you were our overlord, we like to call you. Or again, because I wasn't in radio, I didn't have PDs, so I didn't know what it was like to have.
Right.
You know, producers, yes, maybe in MTV.
I'll just tell you that Jim was a great PD.
He was.
He was great to work with. I've worked with some doozies.
We both have, Mark.
Yes.
I was his virgin talent.
One of the funniest things that ever happened with you guys and myself, we were in Vegas for one of the CES. I believe it was a CES, and you guys were doing one of the, you were there to do a show or to host some of the artists that were there. And we were walking through a couple of casinos, and I was walking with both of you, and I could see people going, they recognized you guys. Like, oh, wait a minute, I know that guy. You guys were oblivious.
Where I know him, but where?
Yeah, you were kind of oblivious to it.
Yeah.
But they were looking like, oh yeah, and then they would stop. It was kind of interesting. I
Funny,
know
it's
they
when
weren't looking
Jim-
at me. They
Yeah,
weren't
it's
looking
funny
at me.
that that's when Jim started giving us respect, Mark. You know, before that, was like, is your show in? You know, you got to get it in on time and fill out all the timesheets, and it's like,
You know,
maybe
but
you
Alan,
guys
how many
really are
times-
celebrities?
How many times, Alan, did I tell you that you were working too hard? Your breaks were great, but you were giving me 2 or 3 breaks in one.
You told me that a lot.
Yeah.
I think the word in radio is economy of words, and I
Yes.
said I'm a Southern boy.
Or STFU was one of the other.
What's that? What does that mean?
Or STFU.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Shut
Go ahead.
Shut the front
Yeah,
door.
you can go ahead and say it. This is a podcast
Shut
on
the
YouTube.
fuck up.
up.
That was the emails that I would get from Jim.
Yeah.
STFU. Okay, Jim, I got it. Okay.
But you know, so I don't know how much you want about the first days of Sirius XM, but when we all came on early on, almost 20 years ago, it was like incredibly, you know, it was a different beast than it is now.
Yeah.
But having never really done radio, but really never doing voice breaks, it was different than getting on spinning some tunes. I had to like do a voice break in between songs, and without hearing the songs, and ship it up to New York in a little flash drive.
Yeah, when we first
FedEx
started, it was
package,
all like that.
everything.
Yeah.
Crazy. You were in New York, so you were going in the studios, Mark.
You know, when Stanley, when Stanley
I joined, I was in LA.
Oh,
that's right. He was in LA. But when Stanley T was the coordinator, Stanley T from the Morning Man Show was the coordinator for the channel, we had to run around Manhattan to grab FedExes that Nina was sending because they wouldn't get to the building. We had to run and get it, like literally stop a truck in the middle of maybe, 23rd Street. Hey, you got a package for Sirius XM 80s on 8?
My first,
did we all? I'm trying to remember when I joined in 2004. What
you used to post your breaks onto an FTP site.
no, not in the beginning, not me. I had a little flash drive,
Okay.
or whatever you call the little card, in a Memorex recorder.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
And
had
then
to
you would
hit
send that in.
record and speak and hit stop. And then I would go to the next break. I would put that in a FedEx package every damn day and send it to New York.
Yes. And then we'd get it, download it, and send it back to you.
Like fucking carrier pigeon radio, man.
Yep.
It was just nuts.
It was.
Much like
but-
MTV, the technology didn't exist
Yeah.
yet for what
Yeah.
we needed.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Now you
but-
just plug into Zeta and you're good to go.
In terms of my non-economy of word, though, look, we were all self-directed, and that's what Sirius XM depended and depends on, talent from all over, just being professional enough to get it done, you know. But
Yeah.
for me to hit play and talk about U2 and know I'm going to go into the Rolling Stones, you know, 2 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God. So I'd have to burn it back and start over again. I gave a lot of lengthy breaks, and but early on, you know, maybe not as many people were listening, and we could kind of ramp up.
I don't know if I ever told you guys, they literally gave me 3 days to put the Big 40 countdown on the air with Nina. Came to me on a Monday and said, we need a countdown on by this weekend. When we first started the countdown.
first countdown. Wow.
The first countdown, have it on the air. But so I had to scramble and write imaging. I had to add, I called Nina because I knew she was into countdowns and she was more than willing to do it. This is before we made you guys all come onto the show. But yeah, 3 days. This is how things worked back then. It was just like they come up with an idea, like execute it now.
Well, there's no doubt the similarities for Mark and I, at least for me, are MTV early on. MTV, as we described the early days, and people who watched it at 2 in the morning didn't know that it was being held together by duct tape, that it was low rent as it could be production wise. The only people who really knew what they were doing, as we say, were the cameramen and the people that worked on the set of the Union studio down in Hell's Kitchen. Everybody else, producers and directors and talent. And we were like, wow, how do you do this? Really, how do you put on a TV show?
Right.
Much less a music television show. So that was part of the beauty of it, I think, early on, no doubt.
How did they determine who was going to do what shift? Who made that decision?
Bob Pittman.
Okay.
Period. I mean,
And
that's
since yeah.
sure that's, you know,
But you guys weren't doing it live, right? Everything was to tape, basically live to tape.
all of the you know, daily music segments were all pre-recorded. The only thing that was live in the early days was our New Year's. We did
Okay.
New Year's live.
Then of course you did Live Aid, which was phenomenal all
That's
day.
85 already.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
down the road. Yeah, down the road it was Video Music Awards, which came out in 84.
Right.
The New Year's Eve shows were the first live events, but up until that point, it was all recording. And early on, it was recording over and over and over again. I mean, you know, we do a break and some producers say he said the wrong thing or that sucked, and we do it over again. So there was like rehearsing the theatrical stage play in a way. We had these long ass days. They would
Right. And you
stretch
guys were
into
on
the night.
weekends too, but you taped on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about MTV was it was 24/7, 365.
Right.
And the work week was 5, not 7 days.
Right.
Yeah.
So initially, the first 6 months, that's what we were doing. And we were, like Alan was saying, we would come in, we'd be there at like 8 in the morning, and we would leave at like 11:30 at night. And be there just all day, just shooting. And it took them a few months, like I think 6 months, to come up with what they called lean hours. There was generally 4 breaks an hour, and the lean hours, which were the overnight hours, I want to say like 2 to 6, something like that, were 2 breaks per hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that cut our record time quite a
Right.
bit, and allowed us to be able to do on Thursday and Friday 48 hours of MTV. instead of
Double shifts. What do we call them? We call them, I don't know, 48 hour. We call them 48.
called 48s,
Yeah.
and then we got the lean hours.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you guys spend weekends going to various cable companies around and promoting this thing?
Some, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't like every weekend, but that was part of the job early on, was to go out there and schmooze the cable operators and try and, you know, get them to pick up this weird music channel.
Right.
Yeah, back in the day, look, I mean, 1981, cable was still kind of in its infancy. CNN and ESPN were the only 24/7 channels, and MTV comes along, and it was all a matter of getting the local cable operator, each of which got to decide what channels they wanted to play, just like these days, except now it's bigger conglomerates. Back then it was local guys and members only jackets, wishing they were in radio, I guess, choosing. So the job was to get MTV on it in the first place, and they'd send us out to schmooze the local cable operators and go to the local record store and sign autographs. But to
That's
just
what
try
the
to,
whole the first ad campaign.
yeah.
I want my MTV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. The line, the copy in that was, call up your local cable operator and say, I want my MTV.
Yeah.
And then you had all those music stars doing it, which, you know, it just
Yeah, I mean,
became a phrase. Everybody was
it was a
saying
brilliant.
it.
But you know,
Yeah.
at that point, MTV was sucking wind. They were losing money. They were, you know, that first half a year, they were going to run out of money before the year was out. So the
They
brilliant
lied to us,
campaign
too.
to get Sting, to get, you know, Mick Jagger, funny stories behind all of those, to do that ad campaign. And within a week or two, literally, cable operators are getting phone calls right and left from all of these people saying, and they were going, "What are you talking about? What is this MTV?" And
Yeah.
it was an amazing market. So they went from what, to 1.5 million people that could watch MTV in the beginning, homes passed, they called it, to, you
But
know,
they lied to us in the
yeah.
very beginning.
You mean,
They told us, that's what they told us. So, yeah, we have like about 2 million, 1.5. That's what we start with.
Yeah.
In reality, we had about 200,000.
we had Bill and Sally in Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, that thing grew so big, and in large part due to you guys and Martha and Nina, that it started influencing radio. I mean, radio around the country reacted and played things because MTV did.
Sure. Well,
We tried to
yeah.
make it so that it wasn't an adversarial relationship.
Right.
Look, we were threatening to radio initially.
Yeah.
But it was a concerted effort by the company to work with radio to try and do co-promotes and stuff like that.
Yeah, to inspire. But look, the business of music was in the toilet at the beginning of the decade. And the power of MTV was shown in the way we were moving records. When a local record store, Turtle Records in Birmingham, Alabama, starts getting calls from people, "Hey, I want that new Duran Duran album, or that U2 album, or Stray Cats or something," in the record store, people were like, "Where are you hearing this music?" And it was MTV. So
Yeah.
then the record companies in New York are getting calls to fulfill the orders in bumfuck who knows where. And they're going, "What is happening here?" And you can bet Bob Pittman and his executive suite was going, "That's us."
And then one of the biggest
Think about it,
compliments
though.
you guys could have gotten was Dire Straits doing money for nothing.
Well, that was 4 years down the pike after
I
we,
know that, but
Behemoth.
I
Yeah.
didn't
you
like-
know,
I was hurt by that, honestly. I was at a show at the Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey, and I forget who it was. I think it might have been Clapton or something. But I was sitting next to Mark Knopfler's manager, Dire Straits manager. And
yeah.
he goes, "Oh, Mark, you are going to be so excited. Mark just wrote this new song. It's going to be on the next Dire Straits album. It's amazing." I was like, "Great, and it's about MTV?" "Yeah, it's about MTV. You're going to love it." "Great. What's it called?" "Money for Nothing."
Yeah. That ain't working. Oh, we loved it, man. That was a seal of approval like none other we had gotten at that point. Anytime, year 3 or 4, MTV started to be used as a generic term for style. An MTV-esque movie or TV show or commercial, we started influencing. So that was pretty cool. But to be immortalized, with
It was a
little bit
big
of,
deal having to
cynicism, it was
make
cool.
sure you were home to see the Thriller video. When you guys did that, I mean,
It was event cable.
yeah, definitely. So I
Must
wanted to
see.
ask each of you to give me your favorite interview at MTV and why that you did.
Only one?
Well, I know you can come up with many, but overall, you got to have one that you really liked more than the
Yours, Al?
others.
I got sort of a bookend thing. My first, most fun one, because it was, I don't know what was said really, was Ozzy Osbourne. I talk a lot about Ozzy and how big a Black Sabbath fan I
I don't
was.
know what was said.
No, didn't matter. It just didn't matter. But I prepped like hell for this thing. You know, this is going to be my first big interview. And I prepped with our producer friend, Liz Nealon. And he comes into the edge of the studio with Sharon and a little entourage. And I could tell, everybody could tell from the get-go as he walked 20 paces to the chair, he's stuttering and he's just like, oh my God, he seems weird. And as he's sitting in the chair, Sharon's going, he's got a bit of a cold. Been taking medicine. It's like, So my first question, you know, I've told the story a million times, but the first question, I don't know what the answer was. And the producer comes over and stops tape and says, just, you know, do the best you can. Just follow
Well, no,
whatever.
you would ask a question and Ozzy would be like, oh yeah, no, you know what I mean?
Yes, he would do just that. So about the Dove incident. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, you know what I mean. Oh, no, don't really. But it didn't matter. The bookend for me, my most satisfying interview was at the end of my time when I went to Russia with Billy Joel for the historic play in Leningrad and Moscow. And that, to me, sort of capped a career, you know, that was kind of weird for 6 or 7 years, but to have the gravitas of going during, you know, perestroika and an important time in the Soviet Union changing into Russia, and to interview Billy Joel was one of my best interviews. As much as he was having a fight with Christy Brinkley and hung over and had huge bags under his eyes. But it was still satisfying. I was a big fan, and that was a good way to kind of cap my career at MTV.
And that must have been amazing going to, you know, Moscow and Leningrad and all that.
An amazing 2 weeks for me. It was really an eye opener. I feel certainly because of what's been happening in the past year or two that I was there and saw the Russian people, and it hurts me to see what they're going through now.
Right.
The despot known as Putin. But back then they were ready to rock. They all knew everything about MTV. They would import VHS tapes, and they knew what MTV was. And kids, whether they came from the metal walk of life or they were into pop music or whatever, they wore leather studded clothes or they wore Cyndi Lauper outfits, and they all knew the music to Billy Joel, every word. And it was just an amazing thing to see that kind of concert in front of an audience that had never witnessed that kind of major Western artist, and the production and everything. It was crazy. It was fun.
What about you, Mark?
Probably, I guess Paul McCartney probably would be the big one for me. They sent me to London to, Paul was working at Air Studios in London on the Give My Regards to Broad Street soundtrack. So, okay, not a great piece of work from Paul. But I was told that you go up to the studio and they'll set you up. We had a crew there. And I was told, as I sat down, you have 15 minutes. I was like, okay.
No pressure.
So I go into it, and sure enough, you know, 15 minutes comes along, and I'm looking back behind Paul, and his publicist is running back and forth like this, going, cut. And I was like, Paul, and I leaned in, I said, Paul, they want me to stop. So, and he leans forward to me and he goes, let's not.
Nice.
And I was like, all right, Paul McCartney wants to talk to me.
Nice.
The guy with the thumbs. And we talked for another 45 minutes. And after that, I was there. It was my first time in London. I was there with my wife at the time. And Paul asked, have you ever been to London before? I said, no. And what are your plans for tonight? Well, we're going to go out and have some dinner. All right, let me recommend some places to you. And he right away, he starts reeling off. He goes, oh, yeah, this one? No, you don't want to go there. That's too expensive. And I'm thinking, it's expensive. I don't want to go.
Would you come along?
Right. But he literally, I'm not exaggerating, Jim, this is insane. He literally got on the phone and called the restaurant that he was suggesting for us and spoke to the manager and said, you know, my friends are going to come over tonight. Can you please take care of them?
Wow.
McCartney made a dinner reservation.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that's crazy.
Was there any look on their faces when you walked in and said, you know, Goodman, and did they go, oh my God, Paul McCartney's friends? Did
They
treat you
were
well?
just very attentive. That's
Wow,
what I recall.
I tell this story all the time, and I told it
that's
not long
amazing.
ago on this podcast when Johnny Resnick of the Goo Goo Dolls was our guest for the day. My best uh, event ever at Sirius XM was Mark, you and I going to the Air Canada Center to hang out with Genesis.
Great. Oh,
It was such a great day.
yeah.
And Phil was like at the end of the day, so you'll be my guest at what show? What show do you guys want to go? Well, we'll do the Madison Square Garden, Phil. That's when we'll go.
Wow.
But they had nothing they were out to promote. You know, they just wanted to play together. And I remember the interview. Mark said, "Would you guys ever do another album together?" And they said, "Oh, we'd make it for ourselves. We're done with promoting bullshit. We don't want to do any of that." You know, but they never, you know, they always got along. They never had a bad breakup. But that was such a cool day. It was just you and I in the Air Canada Center, and they're
That's
doing the
amazing.
show.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. You know, I think some of the more satisfying, there's so many smaller interviews we did with people, whether it was catching them backstage at an event. For me, it was talking to Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander at spring break down in Daytona, you know, backstage kind of mania, which I really loved being a part of, or interviewing Madonna at the Limelight, you know, for 8 crazy minutes before she went on stage.
You did a
Mark
lot
and
of
I
that
are
spring
always
break
surprised.
stuff.
Yeah, Mark and I think, are always surprised by who we interviewed and forgot until someone shows us a video. You know, like Live Aid backstage, we walked up and down the alleyway when we weren't on air at the Anchor Place, and you know, it was Mick Jagger and it was Tina Turner and there's David Crosby, and it was just on and on. And these videos surface, and I go, I didn't even remember that. Didn't even.
100%. That day, especially.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy day, I'm sure.
Every day. My best was talking to Chrissy Hine of the Pretenders. She was kind of sweaty and looking harried already, and the producer's going, "Get in there and ask her a question." I'm like, "Please don't make me," because she had a reputation. I started asking questions, and she seemed sort of distracted by something right over my shoulder, like, "Give me a break. I don't want to answer these questions." As it turns out, her husband at the time, Jim Kerr, had ordered pizza to be delivered backstage, and he's saying it's here. The pizza's here. So she was into that more than Live Aid, I guess.
Wow, tossed aside for pizza. How did that feel?
Was that 10 or 12 hours you guys did? Because I think I watched pretty much all
17.
of it. Yeah,
17
watching
hours.
a lot.
Yeah.
So, Alan, you mentioned going to Russia being one of your favorite trips. Mark, where's the best place MTV ever sent you?
Japan.
Never really.
Come on, Asia. That had to be good.
Oh, hey, that's right.
Yeah. You remember
Forgot
that,
about
Mark?
that one.
You remember
Yeah.
the geisha girl stories you used to tell me? I don't know.
I don't know anything about that,
Yeah.
but I do know that, yes, that's right. Asia. I forgot about that one. That was pretty amazing. They sent me to Tokyo to MC Asia at the Budokan. So
Wow.
I was on stage at the Budokan introducing them. You know, somebody phonetically wrote out what I wanted to say, and I was up on stage doing that. And we broadcast it live on MTV. And of course, that was the night that John Wetton had a massive fight with the band and left.
In the middle of the show?
So it was Carl Palmer on drums, right? Greg Lake was on vocals that night.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Kind of cool, but
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't exactly.
That is a you were there moment.
Yeah.
You know, they would send Mark to London and Japan. They'd send me to Daytona and Fort Lauderdale.
That's okay, Al. You know how much everybody else wanted to do those. I know I was dying to do those spring breaks, but you were the spring break dude.
Look, I was the one who didn't mind standing in the middle of 1,000 drunk, screaming college dudes as
But
they
you
poured
were also
beer all over me.
you became over the years, and I mean this in the best sense of the word, you became MTV's clown. You became a guy, and I mean that in the great, because you were ready to go crazy, be funny, and mess around with the drunks at spring break. You know.
Yeah.
They regarded me as, oh, you're like the interview guy, you know, you don't have fun. you sit down and talk. So you lucked out.
I think that I was a part of the future of MTV in terms of the lifestyle programming that they wanted to do. At Daytona, we literally shined the camera on all the party goers who would, you know, raise their shirts up. And so it was all about, look at me. And I was good with, as a man in the street kind of comedy. That was my thing. I loved messing with people and talking with them. So yes, what I was becoming strong at was meshed with what MTV wanted to start doing. They get Kurt Loder to come on and do the news. We were all a little taken aback by that because particularly Mark and JJ, that was their expertise,
Right.
That's why I quit.
Yeah.
When they
And
hired Kurt Loder,
yeah.
I knew that the stuff that I love to do, he was going to do.
Yeah.
So I was out.
And so that certainly left room for me to do what I did best, and there was no crossover there. But Mark and I decided to leave because I didn't want to be
We quit on
alone.
the same day, didn't we?
Well, 3 weeks apart, I
Oh, it
think. I
was?
was the very last out the door. I had another 3 weeks for whatever reason, but you and I decided on the same day a year earlier.
Yeah.
You had more time on your contract. I just re-upped after my Amuck in America trip, traveling across America, doing crazy things with people. And I got a new contract and a couple of new years and more years. Mark and I looked at each other in the hallway outside our dressing rooms as Martha had gone and JJ had gone and Nina had gone. Downtown Julie Brown was there. Seemed like Adam Curry was on his way in.
He came after I left.
That's right.
That running amok in America, is that when you interviewed the horse?
No, that was for John Mellencamp's Paint the Mother
Paint
Pink
the Mother Pink
sweepstakes we had, where we gave away a pink house in Bloomington. So I did the prep work before that and talked to the people in the town in advance of that. And on a day when we had nothing going and the production crew's driving in a van and there's some horses in the pasture, put Al out. He'll interview the horses.
Naturally.
But that was actually memorable.
Well, after that, the horses started making love and they didn't air that part. But I think there were just so many, in terms of interesting interviews or moments, because MTV became the epicenter of all things entertainment. My favorite interviews were with Robin Williams or Dan Aykroyd when they were doing Ghostbusters, or, Kevin Bacon would come on and guest VJ. I think that's when Mark and I and the three others felt like we had this kind of home and people came over to party with us. It was really satisfying to have that place be where everybody wanted to come.
And it was, we sort of had, after the first few years of MTV, when we did become, we sort of blew up, it was unreal for us in our position to have artists come into the studio and be excited to talk to us. I saw you the other night. You were, I couldn't believe what you said. It was right away. There was like a level of camaraderie that would never have existed if it was just a radio interview.
Yeah, to be a local radio guy and have them travel through your town and begrudgingly get up at 7:50, for drive time and do the interview.
Right.
For us, not only was it huge exposure, but they knew Mark and they loved meeting Nina and Martha. And you're right, especially for a guy like me, that put me on such a calm and even keel with them. It was almost like we had a very different conversation. And they knew that. Only 5 of us were able to talk to some of these artists, unlike any others. It's amazing.
2 guys and a mic. It's Jim Ryan. My partner, Mark Rizzo, is not here this week doing a family issue, but we are on YouTube. Please like, subscribe. It costs nothing. Hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when new episodes go up, and comment. We like comments. Mark, Goodman and Alan Hunter, 2 original VJs, and guys I used to work with over at Sirius XM are my guests today. I miss you guys.
Miss you still.
Miss you
still, buddy.
Do I get to promote my podcast?
Sure, go right ahead, Mark.
I'm doing, for those who still listen to Sirius XM, for 7 years there was a channel called Volume. That was a talk channel about music. And for 7 years, I did a live phone-in talk show about music with Alan Light, an incredible journalist. He wrote Let's Go Crazy, like the definitive Prince biography. And he's worked with Greg Allman and he's written amazing books. He writes for the New York Times.
I was a guest on your show a couple of times.
You were?
Yep.
You were. So we are doing that as a podcast. It's called Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, sounduppod.com. And it's available, everywhere. Spotify, Pandora. I know Apple Music, I think, is our biggest outlet. It's available wherever you get podcasts. We're there.
It's good. 2 pros yapping. I miss it on volume, man. I know that there was a lot of reasons why they had to make
We have
some
great, we have
cuts.
amazing guests. We have
Oh,
Yeah, you
amazing.
guys are good together. You and Alan are great together.
And you know, it's the same thing working at Sirius. It really is a bookend career for us. I mean, Sirius is a great place to work. As you know, the flow through those New York offices is insane, and because they literally are, you know, so many different genres of music. When I walked in there, and when I go to visit every so often, it's like a circus. You know, it's like, oh wow, there's Paul Simon, and look, it's some other huge star.
And prior to
Uh,
the pandemic, it was even more so.
yeah,
know.
yeah. So that was the fun of the whole thing. It really was, and to this
Now,
day.
we know Mark and I shared, or I shared, that Mark and I went to the Air Canada Center with Genesis for a day. Alan, what's been your favorite 80s on 8 interview that you've done? Because one comes to mind for me. You didn't do it by yourself, but it was a great performance and show.
So the cool thing is the artist confidentials that we do, the town halls where we have a band or an artist in one of our studios, LA or New York, and now Nashville and Miami, I guess. And we get to host these acoustic unplugged performances in front of a bunch of subscribers and then interview them in between the 6 or 7 songs. Those are really satisfying. One of my favorites was with Billy Idol in the garage in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the one you're thinking about because there's been
It
a
was
bunch.
also in the garage in LA.
It was. Who was
But
that
you
with?
weren't
I did.
there. Neither of us were there physically because it was
Oh, Tears
during the
for
pandemic.
Fears.
Yes. Tears for
That
Fears.
was great. I co-hosted with Laurie Majewski, who was in the studios there, and I was there via Zoom. I mean,
Right.
their last album, The Tipping Point, one of my favorites from them ever, really. That was satisfying. I think what's really cool post-pandemic, and because of the pandemic, so a little silver lining is the way we talk to artists nowadays via Zoom. It's so much more casual. They don't
Mhm.
have to come into a studio. And I've talked to more artists, Mark, maybe you too, in the past couple of years than many years before, just because Sting is in his apartment in New York and doesn't mind getting on a Zoom with me. And it's a lovely conversation, different than I would have had back in MTV with the pressure and the studio and the entourages and the don't ask them this and don't ask them that. And now Sting, Mark, to your point, did get on at the beginning of the video. He goes, "Hello, Alan." It's like, wow, wow. The kind of camaraderie that we have with these artists nowadays doing the 80s events and the cruise and down in Cancun is really amazing. It's like there's a sense of nostalgia with all of us, and sometimes a sense of friendship that we didn't really even have back in the day that we have now.
Those 80s cruises, I only went on one, but one was enough to, I mean, these people, when a ship of that size has to restock liquor halfway through, you know that people are having a crazy, crazy time.
It's amazing. The demographic is still hot. The 80s are
Yeah.
very hot. And
It's really a pretty amazing thing. In fact, and Al can back me up on this. The last one that we just did this year in March of this year. The guys who have been running the cruise said to me at one point, we've been checking the numbers and stuff. It's pretty clear we're going to be able to do this for probably another 10 years.
yeah.
Wow.
And,
there's
and I
something
said, "You think
about,
Mark will last that long?"
yeah, well,
I said
you're
that.
going to carry the torch, Al. I am the oldest VJ now.
Well,
Um,
you
maybe.
got to have
I'm not
the
sure how old Nina is. She never told us.
Yeah, I
you
know.
got to have the artist that can still be able to perform
Well,
too.
that
So,
Right, for
totally,
sure.
totally true. But look, we didn't think it was going to last for more than a year or two. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go on a cruise, period, for longer than that. So we're really amazed that it's lasted this long.
I can remember Alan always saying, "Now I can only go out there for a couple of days, man. That's about it for me on a boat."
He's gotten over that now. He's
Oh,
the whole time now.
well,
He's able to
I'll tell you what'll get you over
fuck
the
up.
hump on staying a few more days on a boat.
But the interesting thing to me is
Counting
that
down the Benjamins.
Few more
right,
bucks.
there's the nostalgia for the 80s continues
Mhm.
unabated. And it's really time now, I think, for nostalgia for the 90s. But it's not really, I mean, yes, of course, there is some, but there's something about the 80s. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is that it's still hot as ever. People are still pumped about it. And it's really
The
amazing.
music was just so good. When you think back and you go back to it, there was just so many great great songs from that decade.
I think
I
putting your
agree,
finger
but
on, yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know. I mean, I could say that about the 70s, or the
Yeah,
60s.
yeah,
And but and even, well, Jim, as a radio guy, if you have an oldie station, here's the block, you're like 25 years ago, you were doing 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe.
yeah.
And then as time goes on, well, the 50s drop off. We don't have time for those anymore. And the same thing, so those oldie stations are now playing, 60s, 70s, 80s as oldies. And there's still a love of that decade. Maybe it's because of grunge or something. Grunge was so dark.
Well, the nihilism of the 90s, and that's not fair to broad stroke the 90s. And I mean, to your point, they do have a 90s cruise that they're going to experiment with this year. And,
Yeah.
a little smaller boat.
Downtown Julie Brown, who we allow on our 80s
I know.
events.
We have to. She's sweet. Double dipping.
She loves you guys, by the way.
I'm
Trust
not
me.
mad at Julie. It's
Yeah.
not Julie's fault.
We love Julie. I look, we try to put our finger on what the charm of the decade was all the time. Every time we are asked, what do you think it is about the 80s? When I get an email from a mom whose 16-year-old daughter loves the 80s,
Yeah.
we can talk about the candy colors and the day glow and the synthesizers and the fun danceability of it all, and forgetting some of the great music that was landed on us by serious groups like U2 and Peter Gabriel and Springsteen. There's just so much great music. I do believe it was the eclectic mix. I really do. I think.
Plus, 80s had some causes. You had
Yeah, no
Live
doubt.
Aid, you had Hands Across America, you had all that stuff. And
But MTV is
We Are
what
the World.
made
that
the
whole thing.
80s. MTV was
Yeah.
there to put on display all of the fun, the pop, and the seriousness of the decade. Mark and I have been trying to do a TV show forever on that decade because we don't think it's been properly, exposed. It was amazing with Reagan and MTV as a counterpoint to that. It was an amazing decade, I think, in general. Will it ever come again? I'd be interested to know for my kids. Will they go on a cruise in 20, 30 years celebrating the tens? Or maybe the aughts, Justin Timberlake and Britney, when they came along, that's fun again.
Yeah, man.
The funny thing is, you guys were such a part of it, but you probably didn't realize it as you were doing it, right? You didn't realize some of the significance that ended up being that way with the movies and all the iconic, look, let's call them the now he's all the Brat Pack stuff and all that, as you're doing it, you probably don't. I think I had a conversation with both of you at some point, like, I didn't never saw Fast Times at Ridgemont High in the theaters. I didn't go to the movies and see that.
Well, we were busy, but we knew they were there.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I read the book. I was friends with Cameron.
We were aware after a while, and certainly when Money for Nothing comes on and you start to see how enmeshed in the landscape of the culture of the 80s we were, how inextricable we were with movies and TV and the culture of things. In a weird way, Mark and I and our three cohorts had a level of fame that certainly outstripped the pay they were giving us. So we led these weird sort of celebrity, not celebrity lives. But I think what made us different and such humble people to this day is that our feet were on the ground. We really felt like friends to the audience, and that's why they still love bumping into Mark Goodman. He ain't Tom Cruise, and they're not going crazy like, can I sleep with you right now? Although I'm sure some do. It's, you were my friend, Mark Goodman, for my college career when I got my first.
You were the conduit between the stars and the audience. And we
MTV
were in their house 6 hours a day, every freaking day.
Couldn't get away.
We were on the air more than Johnny Carson.
Yeah. But MTV, I think, missed a massive opportunity over the last 10 years. They never like to look back, as they say, but they could have had a couple segments a week or, a couple hours a week where they had you guys all back reliving those old videos. And I'm sure thousands of people would tune in. Millions of people would tune in, not even thousands, millions.
Yeah. Not MTV's bag.
Not their MO.
No, it's not. It's not their MO. But
and I mean, I think, it's no longer the new
Yeah.
technology. You know,
Right. That's
MTV
true.
was the internet of the 80s.
True.
And there's, you know, people, Alan will attest to this. We hear people every time we're anywhere. Oh man, I wish MTV was back on
Yeah.
with all you
Yeah.
guys playing the videos. I'm like, why?
You bring it
Why?
back.
You have YouTube. You can see
Yeah.
whatever you
I
want.
have a mouse
anytime
and
you want.
YouTube, dude. Yeah.
There's no need for it. Technology has passed.
Yeah.
Has
That's
passed.
true.
Well, and
It
what people
has.
really miss, what they really miss is not the inability to watch a video or listen to music. They miss the curation that MTV provided. It was one channel, and we benefited from being the only game in town.
Yeah.
Ted Turner tried to come on with a music channel, and we beat him with VH1.
Quickly. 4 weeks.
Oh man.
Ooh.
But it was just that there was one kiosk, one place to go. Everybody felt like they were a part of the party, no
Yeah.
matter where you lived. We've all of us called MTV the first social media.
Mhm.
You know, you got to watch the Michael Jackson Thriller video premiere at the same time. So it was an event, and you were there no matter where you were, and you could dress like Madonna. So that was the one thing that people talked about around the water cooler, and it was the glue that held America together.
That being said, did they, a couple of years in, as things started did they take input from you guys, music, on what videos they may play?
No.
Or they just dictated to you what was going to be? No, they didn't. Like, Mark, you may have heard, you know, a new song from Bowie, let's say, and said, you know, we should put that video on.
I did that many times. Sometimes I don't think I had ever had any influence on what they did. Sometimes the things that I had suggested would get added, other times not. But no, there was, in fact, that was the life that the five of us had existed in the studio.
Yeah.
There was a whole other world, the office. We
Yeah.
never went to the office. We had an office there for the first, I don't know, year or something. We never went. There was no time to go to the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once we were done recording, we wanted to go home.
Right.
And, you know, there was a few execs who would gather together every week, and they would decide what would be played. And it was, you know, it was like the old days in radio. You know, a lot of schmoozing going on. Wasn't necessary for any money to change hands, although that's what happened towards the end of my tenure there, 87. By then, suddenly the record labels were like, wait a minute, we're giving these guys free programming, which was Pittman's genius on
Right.
the television channel, and it won't cost us like more than 20 cents a day to produce. You know, all of
Yeah.
our content is taken care of.
Yeah. Well, that was the early problem, and then you know they worked that out, and then Thriller was an example of the record company still saying, "We want you to pay," and they said, "Well, we don't pay for videos, but we'll make a documentary about the making of Thriller, and within the budget, we'll have a video edit, and therefore, you know, we didn't pay for it." But I think that was the genius, and it worked. It was a real win-win for everybody.
By the way, that happened at Sirius too, because I started there when people were still calling it Sirius. So satellites had just gotten launched, and we couldn't get record labels to bring anybody by. I mean, it was pulling teeth. And now, you know, because of the DMCA law and all that, you know, we only get so many Sirius only gets so many waivers a year, and some of them have to be paid for, and it, you know, it becomes this whole big deal.
I mean,
That's
I think that for Mark and I and the others, the notion that we would be involved in the programming or any other aspect other than our time in front of the camera or prepping
that's
for an
Alan.
interview.
I gotta say, when I came to MTV, I was coming off. I was coming from PLJ,
True.
where, you know, I did 10 to 2 at night. I didn't have any say in the programming, and the program director there is a legendary rock programmer, so he didn't want to hear anything from me. But I had been a music director in Philadelphia, so when I first got to MTV, and this is in the book, I wrote like a 4-page memo to Bob Pittman, outlining, here's the things I think we should do. Here's the audience that I think we can get. Here's the kind of way that we should be playing music. I outlined all of that. And it was like, Hello.
Got filed, right? They filed that.
File, circular file. Yes, exactly.
Oh, the hubris of thinking you were going to come on and help program the channel.
10 to 2. That's the shift I did at Y100 in Philadelphia when I got to Philly.
10 p.m.
And yeah, 10 p.m. to 2
Yeah.
and 2 a.m. And you didn't see anybody in the office. Never
But,
did.
also early on, certainly we had 2 videos to play. Later, we had 4,000 a week they were trying to sift through. I mean, the consultancy for MTV videos was probably unlike radio, and that it was really what's a good video now,
Right.
what looks great, what band is hot. So maybe some similarities as MTV started to roll along about the record company's priorities with artists and who they wanted to push on MTV. But it was really what's going to make the mix here, different than just on the radio.
Certainly, we hoped that there would be some great videos. But if you think like when the day we launched, Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl was #1 that week. REO Speedwagon, High Infidelity was already a massive hit. So all of those, Keep on Loving You, and all of those from High Infidelity, we were already playing those. And oh my God, talk about crappy videos. Love REO, but damn, these guys hated.
They didn't know
we were and hated doing videos, and it showed.
Yeah.
They didn't.
That's why most everybody did performance videos. And then Alan, I was just joking on the air about Separate Ways.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Which I said, I don't know. There are people who think this is the worst video of all time. I know that the band was the first performance or non-performance video they ever did.
Yeah.
And they hate it.
It was awful. And every one of them have said that ever since. They're down in New Orleans on tour. They are breaking out. They're going crazy. They're huge. And the record company says, we got to get another video on MTV. And they're like, we're on a break here on the tour. We got the day off. I don't care. Get down to the wharf in New Orleans on a cold and drizzly day. Oh. Steve's getting chewed out by his girlfriend, Sherry, in the trailer, who's jealous of the model in the video. So she's reaming him out every time he comes back. And then the director's some putz saying, hey, act like you're playing an air keyboard on the wall. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But, as Kevin Cronin said early on, they didn't know. They just didn't know. They didn't know what a video was, and they didn't know the power of the video.
Not like us. Kevin, I've spoken to Kevin about this. They were not MTV fans. They understood the importance, and so they went along.
Yeah.
But they were not happy. I mean, there were certain artists who had trouble making the segue into that other medium. I mean, the opposite of that is Ray Davies, the Kinks, and Peter Gabriel too. Both artists who it was perfect. Video was perfect for them. It's just another another
and
Duran
David
Duran.
Bowie, I would call it the other side of the Atlantic was much more in tune with the visual. They've been doing Top of the Pops forever. The old rockers who were on tour, like REO and Journey, they didn't know what that was. It's funny. Kevin Cronin's story is that didn't like it. The videos go up. The first week the videos on the air at MTV, they couldn't walk to the bus anymore from the backstage. He said, we couldn't believe it. It's like a phenomenon. People realized who we were. So,
It's Two Guys and a Mic. I'm Jim Ryan, my partner, Mark Rizzo, off with a family issue this week. I'm here with Alan Hunter and Mark Goodman, 2 of the original MTV VJs, and we worked together at Sirius for many years. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We do a top 5 every week on our podcast, and I put a what do you want to call it? A theme out there for you guys to think of a top 5 this week. And of course, it centers around your favorite music videos of all time, since you guys are quote unquote video jockeys, the original video jockeys. So Alan, why don't we start with you and give me your top 5 videos?
Man, will we ever get away from that VJ thing, Mark?
Okay.
VJ. You're a VJ. That's what my kids, I got youngins now, 13 and 15, and they're at school, and every now and then a teacher will get wind of who his daddy is. Oh, he's a VJ. And so then it goes around, your dad's a VJ? The hell is that? I don't know. You want to just sort of rapid fire go through these? And I don't want to step on Mark because I got some extras in case they cross over with Mark.
We're allowed to have same likes.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think we do, but let's see.
And I'll try to be brief about the reasons for each of them. Earliest video from Duran Duran was Girls on Film. To this day, holds up as a smoking hot video that was edgy, that was cool, it was hip. that set the tone for MTV and the new wave.
Yeah.
It was
And
also the video that Alan Hunter made me watch in slow motion, version that we weren't playing on MTV.
the
If you know
R-rated
what I'm
version.
saying.
The R-rated version. Look, the PG was frosty enough. I mean, salacious enough. That's what set parents' hair on fire that thought MTV was the devil's workshop. I said, see, them naked people all getting jiggy with it. So that was an amazing video done by Godley and Krem, who went on to do, so many other great videos aside from 10cc and their own stuff. Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime, probably my top 3 of all time. Tony Basil helped
To do that on
choreograph
the
it
air.
with David Byrne. I do. The Choppy Chop, David Byrne in front of a screen. You didn't really need much. The song is very emotive for me. I think about the open tinkly notes of Once in a Lifetime. It
Yeah.
reminds me of early MTV, and the video is just Byrne being kooky, which is funny. Speaking of Peter Gabriel, I thought the best complimentary song and video was Shock the Monkey from Peter Gabriel. He, as Mark said, was heavily into the visual, got to put on his monkey makeup. And the video, which was done by a guy named Brian Grant, was just wild. It was one of the early fast cut edit, weird images, a monkey. What's with the monkey? Is he gonna shock the monkey? That was cool. And I felt that they both complemented each other. A highly percussive song with those great edits. Move ahead a couple of years to Springsteen's Brilliant Disguise, which is 87, 88. The reason I love it is because after a few years, everybody's trying to reinvent the video. What are we going to do with it now? How many more edits can we get into it? And this was one shot, wide, black and white. He's in a kitchen playing Brilliant Disguise. The camera dollies in, ends with a close-up on his face. Very intimate, one shot, no edits. And I just thought, well, they're back to simplicity now. And it's a great song. I love Tunnel of Love, the entire album. I would say one more video that was big for Mark and I, and he might name Billie Jean, because it was so groundbreaking. Not just because it was the first Michael Jackson video, but it was a cool video also from Steve Barron. Huge production. Michael was amazing in it. So that's 5. Lastly, I would just say that the rap and hip hop videos that started coming on around 86, 87, that was another paradigm shift in video music on MTV.
Yeah.
People didn't have big budgets anymore, and all you needed was a Super 8 camera and, NWA or the Beastie Boys mucking around the streets. Those came on MTV, Yo MTV Raps, which was a new program, and I thought sort of in general, Public Enemy or LL Cool J brought a whole new spirit to video making during the day. And there you go. Beat that, Mark.
What do you got, Mark?
All right. At number 5
Yeah.
is one that nobody will ever mention, but is one I consistently mention. The artist is Chaz Jankel.
Oh, yeah.
And the video is called Questionnaire.
Mm.
And it was directed by Chaz's sister, Annabelle Jankel, who was a big video director in the early 80s. And Questionnaire, the thing that I loved about Questionnaire was that the effects that they used were all not digital, let's put it that way. There was a woman who had this huge dress on with strip lights all around it, and she would move and it would make all kinds of designs, and there was all kinds of lighting and natural things that made this video look incredible. Never a hit song. We played it for like 2 weeks on MTV, but that one just always stuck with me.
That's a good one. What year was that?
What's that?
What year was that?
I want to say like 83.
Okay, early.
Okay, early.
Yeah, it was early on. At number 4, Madonna's Vogue.
Ah.
Of all the Madonna videos, and
yeah.
there's plenty, and I think she's had some that are horrendous and others that are brilliant. This is one that I think was brilliant, directed by this unknown director at the time, a guy named David Fincher, who would go on to direct, Social Network and umpteen other legendary movies. So Vogue, really cool, and a dance craze that never.
And that was her Marilyn Monroe period, wasn't it?
Well,
she
yeah, I
playing
mean,
that character
she
in
was
that?
coiffed blonde, and she was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
At number 3, one of my favorite songs of all time, any artist, anywhere, any era, from one of my favorite albums of all time, Achtung Baby, 2 album.
Yeah.
One, I think
Oh,
it's one of the most stunning songs ever, and it wouldn't even matter what the video was. The
Yeah.
song is so amazing. And that was directed by Anton Corbijn, who was a photographer and worked a lot with Depeche Mode and other acts like that.
yeah.
So he was very lighting concerned, and was really all about that, which worked really, really great for that particular song, especially. Number 2, one that I was not at MTV when this was out, but it was close. It's a song called "Weapon of Choice" by Fatboy Slim. And that video featured Christopher Walken doing the most incredible dance moves you could ever imagine.
Great. That was great.
Just phenomenal. I loved it. And you know, I gotta sort of go with what the real deal is. I love Peter Gabriel, and my number 1 would be Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
From Peter.
Another great video.
To date, the most awarded video at the MTV VMAs, I think, at 9. None have come close.
Well.
I have 5, and Peter made my list too at number 2. So I'll start with number 5. Rush, Tom Sawyer. And no, it wasn't much to the video, but a performance video. But that band and the noise and the sound that band, 3 guys, could make was just phenomenal. With Neil as the drummer and Geddy and the keyboards and the bass and Alex's guitar work. I know it wasn't like a fancy video or theme like that. It was just them performing, but it's such a great song. So
it's most appropriate to put them in as live a setting as they could for their video, not hamming around. Lip syncing.
Number 4, I have Van Halen's "Hot for Teacher," just because
you're a bad boy with bad thoughts.
You are canceled.
You are.
Yeah, but the whole dancing thing, I thought it was so funny with Eddie and those guys doing this whole thing.
That's what I was
in their
watching.
Suits.
Yeah, the guys dancing. That's what I was watching.
Yeah. Peter Gabriel did make my. I'm sorry, Tom Petty is next on my list, but "Don't Come Around Here No More."
That was a great one.
The whole Alice in Wonderland thing.
Loved it. He was the Mad Hatter, and his partner Dave Stewart was the Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
Then I had Peter Gabriel with "Big Time."
Yeah.
Because I love that video with him and the clock and the whole, just the whole
pixelation or something.
Yeah,
more
the whole
claymation
Claymation.
and clay anime. It was claymation, but animated in a different way. Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go to number 1, the Spitting Image stuff, "Land of Confusion" by Genesis. I thought was a great video.
Yeah.
Really did.
Jim Yukich was the director, and he saw the Spitting Image troupe, which is UK's version of our Muppets.
Right.
And they did a show and they parodied Phil Collins, and he said, "Hey, can you make a whole video?"
So they did the parody of the Reagan and the all that stuff. It was just a great, entertaining video.
Yeah.
Even though it was nightmarish, yes.
On any given day, I could come up with 10 more videos that I loved and remembered. Mark went obscure, which is really fun when you think about some of the more obscure ones that were better at 3 in the morning when you were trying to come down from some buzz you got.
Nobody ever mentions, for example, the Producers.
Yeah, from Atlanta.
Who are joining us at 80s in the Sand in November.
What she's got that I ain't got. She's got you. That lead singer guy was so dynamic. Same for Midnight Oil. I love Peter Garrett, the lead singer from Midnight Oil.
Yeah.
But I think when we name favorite videos, they are always tied to a good song. There's not one video I love if I didn't love the song.
I said it. You can have a crappy song with a great video, and it's still a crappy song. You have an amazing song with a crappy video, and it's still an amazing song.
It's true.
Peter became a politician in Australia, right?
He did 20 years.
Yes,
he
for a while,
got out of the band, got back a few years back. I got to see them, but you're so right. I mean, I think video never did kill the radio star. It never really elevated a crappy song.
The internet did that.
Yeah, the internet did that.
It did. The TikTok that the young kids do these days.
radio stopped caring, and well, not Sirius, but radio in general stopped caring about helping people discover new music. And that became, and they stopped being local. When you stop being local and you stop doing music, and you know, you're going to lose the audience.
Radio's strong suit is to be local.
Right.
Of course, people jam MTV all the time with homogenizing popular music, but how could you help if the national channel is going to do that? But then MTV, to their credit, came along with 120 minutes and explored, you know, new music. They gave people, you know, the metal show on Saturday nights, Headbangers Ball. So they were starting to provide little niches for people to get into. So,
you know, Mark, if there's such thing as winning in radio anymore, it is stations that have mastered being local.
Mm-hmm.
That's what works.
And if to pull that off these days, especially for, we have, what is there, 3 radio companies now, I think?
Yeah, not many.
But most of them syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
So Martha Quinn, for example, on 36 radio stations. Yep. And they're thrilled to have her. She does great. But she feels it. She can't talk about the accident on the freeway that morning.
Right.
You know? And that is something that is absolutely missing. And the more that radio consolidates, the more that radio has financial issues as it's having now, then it's the cheaper they're going to be, and the worse it's going to be in terms of being local, you know, really buying into that strong suit. That's your stock right
There's
there.
a few that do it, though. There is a few. There's some out there.
Is Jack Radio still out there?
It is in a lot of different
they like Texas,
markets.
Austin-based or something? They were. I'm not going to name any, but they were trying to be more free form and local.
It's still lately. There's a big push, and it seems to be working in some markets, for classic top 40 with the top 40 DJ approach that you used to hear more in the 70s into the 80s.
So what,
like Z100, when Z100 first came on the air in the 80s. That, you know,
what the most in demand, Mark and I just got these stats yesterday, the most in demand show over the Labor Day weekend in the entire Sirius XM music world, the most in demand, meaning they got to it.
Was it the 40 on 40? The 40 classic rewind?
By like twice.
Yeah.
Classic cassette era rock and roll people. The demographic obviously is huge, but it's a big channel.
Again, getting back to 80s on 8, classic rewind, those channels were always right up near the top.
Mark's on those channels. That's why.
Agreed. Agreed. You're right. I am carrying you along now.
Yes, you are. I'm on your back again, buddy. Nagging you all the way.
2 guys and a mic. Mark Goodman and Alan Hunter, original MTV-VJs, have been my guest. Also, they work at Sirius XM, worked with the guys for many, many years. I can't thank you enough for being on the show today, and I really appreciate it. Mark, I'd love to be a guest sometime on your podcast.
All right.
So,
do you have any records coming out, or are you going on?
No, I don't have any records coming out, but if you want to talk music stuff.
You know what? He hadn't had me on the podcast yet, but it doesn't matter. I got my TikTok. I'm doing the TikTok thing. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do that.
Well, find this podcast on YouTube, 2 guys and a mic. Guys, again, thank you so much for being here.
Jim, we love you, buddy. You were a great PD, as Mark put it. I called you an overlord because you were in total control of my life every day, but we miss you.
I will say this. You look pretty good, Jim. I think not being around with the lunatics at this company has done you well.
Man, he's
not stressed anymore.
Yeah. You're looking good.
He doesn't look stressed, does he, Mark? Well, you don't have me hammering away every morning. Where's my log for the day?
Yeah, I don't think I was ever really late with logs for you guys. Occasionally, if something was crazy, I might be a little behind. I kept my logs getting. You got them in plenty of time.
Great being with you, Jim.
All right, guys. 2 guys and a mic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, buddy.